During his entire lifetime, my grandfather was known to drop bombshells, whether it was about something as major as dropping off his position as the mayor, or something as minor as announcing his marriage at the age of 70 with a girl who was the age of his granddaughter. But the biggest bombshell he dropped before his death led to a major stir in my entire family. Anderson's family has always been one hell of a complicated one. My grandfather was a rich mayor of the suburb Sandhill. He achieved many things in his life, but as he grew old, he became a womanizer. Our entire family relied on him and never really thought of working on their own since Grandpa had several businesses that brought in pretty good income. My father was the one who used to work in one of his companies as a manager, so I was the only one among all our cousins who felt proud. My mother named me Robert after my grandfather's name. It didn't surprise me when I found out, because grandfathers have an entirely different form of respect in our families. So anyway, as I was telling you, my grandfather was a womanizer. He married and got divorced 7 times in his entire life, and he had children from all the marriages. My father was the son of his 4th wife, Riley, and then there was my Aunt Teresa from his 1st wife, my first Uncle Carl from his 2nd wife, my 2nd and 3rd uncles who were twins, Mark and Bruno. He had a daughter, Anna, from his 3rd wife, who died from cancer at a very young age. And then he had another son, my 4th uncle, Mason, from his 5th wife. My Aunt Freya, who was 3 years older than me, was in full custody of my mother, and so was my youngest uncle, who was 5 years younger than me, Sam. Aunt Freya and I were best friends since she often visited the house. Aunt Teresa was divorced and did not have any children. She wasn't planning on remarriage either. I total of 4 cousins: Henry, Uncle Carl's son; Rosaline, Uncle Bruno's daughter; Aaron and Oliver, Uncle Mason's sons. You can already understand that my family was the biggest one in the entire Sand Hill. As I mentioned earlier, apart from my father, no one else was interested in working, and they used to say, "Why bother working hard for more money when we already have tons?" And it seemed my grandfather did not mind that either. Aunt Freya's thoughts were that they were just lazy and selfish. That's why they didn't want to work. She was planning on starting her career when she finishes college, and so was mine. It was 2 years before Grandpa's death when he married this young lady, Samantha. Everyone was saying that she was a gold digger, and she did it only for the money, so they all hated her. But she lived quietly for the 2 years Grandpa was alive, and right before his death, he made a major announcement regarding his will. In his will, Grandpa had given the power over to Samantha, not his fortune. No, it was only the power to choose who would be worthy of succeeding it. Samantha would decide whom to name as heir after her careful consideration. She was excluded from the will, so she could not name herself. It looked like she did not need it either, since she already had a firm on her name. Now, Grandfather died a week after announcing his will, but little did he know what kind of chaos it would bring to the family. Those who hated Samantha so much before Grandpa's death were now doing all sorts of things and going out of their way to impress her, which seemed pathetic. Just after 1 month after Grandpa's death, Uncle Carl and his son were murdered in their sleep. Even a fool would know that it was someone from the family who killed them. So the investigation started, and everyone from the family was on the suspect list. And in my opinion, it was only fair, because Uncle Carl and her son were a major threat to the rest of the family. It was not because he was legally first in line to inherit everything, but it was because he had started to earn Samantha's favor. When even after 3 months they couldn't find a single clue related to the murder, they put it on cold cases. Everyone was in a dilemma now, because if Samantha had to be impressed by someone in the family, then they could end up getting murdered, and if they don't earn her favor, they could end up losing the inheritance. There were only a few people who were treating her just this way that they had always been: Father, Aunt Freya, Oliver, Aaron, and me. We were the only ones who were unaffected by the will, because we had already decided that we would be making our way to the top. And since Father was an employee in the company, he had a salary and employee benefits such as a retirement plan, so he did not care about the will either. Trust was completely lost in the family, and everyone started to doubt each other. The entire family was a mess. Fights and arguments started to break out any minute. After 8 months of the grandpa's death, Uncle Mason was also murdered. Everyone started to suspect my father and the twin uncles from the murder, but they kept denying it. Cases of the previous murders were open, along with the investigation of Uncle Mason's murder. I don't know how, but the police came to the conclusion that whoever murdered them was shorter, around 5'2" to 5'4", and there were only Aunt Freya, Rosaline, Oliver, and myself who came in this category. It was hard for me to believe any of us was capable of doing such a heinous crime for money. Another clue was found, and it was the ring mark on Uncle Mason's neck. It was believed it would have gotten there when the culprit strangled him, and we all knew that mark too well. So we told the police about it, and they took Rosaline for questioning, but she kept denying her involvement in the murder. No other clue was found after that, so they arrested her and started trials. "This is exactly why I hate bombshells," Aunt Freya said. "What should we do now, Aunt Freya?" I asked as I walked in the backyard behind her where she was planting some flowers. "Nothing. We just wait and see what happens next," she said while burying the ring along with the plant. "What if they find out?" I asked in hesitation. "Don't worry, no one will. He would have killed you too, just like he killed Carl and Henry if I did not act when I did," she said without turning back. "But what about Rosaline?" I squatted down near her while asking. "Let me assure you, she was involved in this too." She sounded certain, so I did not ask her. All I thought next was that it was a good thing that no one knew about Grandpa giving the same ring to Aunt Freya as Rosaline. Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. "You must be loving this, aren't you?" Silva's tone sounded bitter. "Why would I enjoy your downfall? It's not like I'm your enemy or something," Wayne said calmly, as if whatever was going on didn't affect him. No wonder Silva was doubting him. "Don't test my patience. I'm not in the mood for one of your little pranks, Silva," Wayne shouted in anger. "I'm not pulling a prank. What you experienced was a sleep paralysis. Tell him, Carl." I just simply shrugged my shoulders in response, and Silva was still as calm as ever when he told him that. But it was no use, and he didn't believe him and continued screaming at him. I don't know what it was this time, but it wasn't something new for me to witness. Living with these two for almost a year now, I've come to terms with their arguments and disagreements on different matters. Wayne and Silva are brothers, but the way they keep arguing all the time, one could mistake them for their worst enemy, the kind of person who cannot stand each other. Their opposite personalities continue to crash all the time, to the point where I am sick and tired of it by now. Silva was a bit of the fun type, always stayed calm, kept cracking jokes, making fun of everything and everyone, and most importantly, he was famous for his twisted, weird, yet funny pranks on Silva. Wayne, on the other hand, was a bit cranky. Silva always said that he was the grumpy dwarf from the Snow White story. He always hated Silva's pranks and always opposed his opinion like it was the purpose of his existence to always argue with his brother. But still, there were times when it seemed like they were each other's brothers, as they always got each other's backs without even saying anything to one another. And that was something about them that I admired. Today was supposedly a big day for me, since I got the news that I might get a promotion in the position I had been aiming for so long. I wanted to share this with my roommates and have a celebration with them. That was why, after just hearing the news when I was about to text them this, I controlled myself and went to my seat. I continued giving my full focus to my work and finished my share before time to leave early, but my boss gave me another task that took a bit longer, so I exited my workplace a bit later than my leaving time. I was still very excited to share the news of my possible promotion with those two idiots, so I rushed to the parking lot and even refused my coworker Sam to give him a ride and drove straight to the apartment. On the way, I bought beers and snacks for us to eat and put them on the back seat. I was going to tell them about our little drinking celebration after sharing the news, But the moment I stepped inside the apartment, I heard Wayne shouting at Silva in the living room. Thinking that it must be another disagreement over some matter, I slowly walked there and sat silently on the couch, started to watch their fight. Wayne was accusing his brother of pulling an extreme level of prank on him while he was sleeping, but Silva refused to accept that, saying he didn't do such a thing, which was unlike him because no matter what kind of nasty prank he plays on someone, he always owns up to it rather proudly. What did he do? I finally asked after listening to their non-stop useless bickering. This is gonna be fun, Silva remarked as he noticed his brother's expression, which seemed obvious that he was getting ready to tell me. This evening, Silva made smoothies and gave me a drink. In about a half an hour of drinking that, I fell asleep. Just when I was slowly falling into a deep slumber, I suddenly felt a heavy object on my chest that made me feel suffocated. At first, I couldn't understand what it was, but then I saw him sitting on the chest and kept glaring at me without even saying. For some reason, I couldn't move my body, nor was I able to speak, no matter how hard I tried. I know I was saying his name, and even though my lips were moving, I just couldn't get the words out of my mouth, Wayne told me. And you believe I did that, Silva said after hearing him. Who else has a face like you? And tell me, who else other than you would pull such a prank? Do you have any idea how frightened I was? I was feeling like I would die in my sleep. I even started to think that you planned all this just to kill me. My breath started to distort. I was feeling like my soul was getting sucked out of my body. That suffocation was unbearable, he replied in disappointment, as if he believed his brother would do something like that. Silva's right. He didn't do anything of that sort. You're misunderstanding him and getting confused with your hallucinations, I said in a slow voice, which made him look at me in disbelief. The moment I heard all of this, I knew it wasn't any kind of prank. I was well aware of these symptoms, since I used to have them in my teenage years. Are you seriously taking sides at this critical moment? Wayne said in anger. No, I'm not. You know very well that despite your arguments and everything, he's always there when you need him. I tried to give him a reason. If he did not mix something in that smoothie, and if it wasn't him who was sitting on my chest, then tell me, Silva, why were you standing here when I was finally able to move? The way he asked seemed like he was determined by his doubt. It's because when I entered the room, I saw you sleeping with your eyes open and you were sweating badly. Just when I was about to shake you, you woke up on your own and started shouting at me. I'm telling you, what you experienced was an episode of sleep paralysis, he said tiredly. That's what I was about to say. Trust me, I used to have them, and these hallucinations can get crazy, I said. He somewhat seemed convinced from our argument, and even if he wasn't, I wasn't going to let this go, since I'd already been a victim of sleep paralysis, which caused me to misunderstand someone who used to be very dear to me. I had feared and suffered for years before overcoming this, but I wasn't going to let the same thing happen to these two. That's why I had decided to take him to a sleep doctor, even by force if needed.
How far would you go to find a missing family member? Is there anything you wouldn't do, or anywhere you wouldn't go in order to recover a loved one? For many of us, the answer will be a resounding no. We'd do anything for the people close to us. And that's exactly how Sarah Turney felt regarding the disappearance of her older sister, Alyssa, in the year 2001. Over the years, Sarah tried almost every means at her disposal in her quest for answers. She started Facebook and Instagram accounts dedicated to spreading awareness of Alyssa's absence. She started a blog called Justice for Alyssa, which kept track of the ongoing investigations. She reached out to multiple media outlets, both regional and national, actually managing to bag an appearance on Dateline NBC. She started her own podcast, appeared as a guest on other people's, and even attended CrimeCon, the weekend-long event for true crime fans as well as those desperate for leads. She left no stone unturned in her search for justice, but unfortunately, she had no luck in the search for her missing sister. Then, in Sarah's desperation, she turned to TikTok. Sarah later said that she started a TikTok account because she wanted to reach a young audience that hadn't heard about Alyssa's case before. She made sure her video posts included as little of her own speculation and theory as possible, making sure to present only the facts to her new audience. However, she did make it clear that one particular line of inquiry had been almost completely neglected. Her father, Michael Turney, who adopted Alyssa after her mother had died, had never been considered a serious suspect. After announcing she created a TikTok page dedicated to spreading awareness about Alyssa, she also included a word or two about the people who'd had less than positive things to say about it. She made very clear that no matter what anyone said about TikTok or any other medium, if it helped her get closer to answers surrounding Alyssa's disappearance, it would all be worth it. It was all part of her doing the right thing and fighting for justice. To her astonishment, Sarah quickly gained over 1 million followers on the video app, with each new video post giving her more and more of an audience. In one particular video, Sarah gives a full and frank account of the day her older sister disappeared. At the time, both girls were living with their father, Michael, since their mother, Barbara, had died of cancer. It was her last day of junior year at Paradise Valley High School in Phoenix, Arizona. Sarah, who was 12 years old at the time, says she found her sister's usually neat, tidy bedroom looking like it had been struck by a bomb. It was a total mess. The only sign of Alyssa was her Nokia cell phone that was left on the dresser, along with a note saying she'd gone to California to try to make it on her own. In another video, she talked about why exactly she had such a strong hunch that her father was to blame. And needless to say, Michael Turney was much more of a dark personality than he liked to let on. Because 7 years after Alyssa first went missing, Phoenix Police Department made a rather worrying discovery at Michael's home whilst on a completely separate investigation: a stash of 26 homemade pipe bombs, 3 incendiary devices, and 2 silencers. After he had such volatile equipment confiscated, Michael allowed himself to be interviewed by ABC News. During the interview, he told journalists that he had been planning to take his own life in order to bring attention to Alyssa's case, but added that the bombs found in his home had actually been planted there by police officers attempting to frame him for his daughter's disappearance, which he denied having anything to do with. They have no proof whatsoever of anything other than rumors, innuendos, and lies. There's only 2 people that can confirm whether I did it, and one is me, and the other is Alyssa. Alyssa's not here, and I'm sitting here, and all I can say until hell freezes over, I didn't do a thing to my daughter. In March of 2010, Michael pleaded guilty to possession of the unregistered pipe bombs and was sentenced to 7 years in prison for owning the explosives and all the silencers. Since April of last year, Sarah has been uploading TikToks about her father's alleged role in Alyssa's disappearance. In one particular video that has accrued over 13 million views, she shared home VHS footage from March 29, 1997, 4 years before Alyssa went missing. In another TikTok, Sarah plays what she claims is a recorded conversation she had with her father a few months after he got out of prison in 2017. The meeting took place at a Starbucks and lasted for over an hour. I felt a lot of different emotions afterwards, Sarah says. I was sad that he still refused to give me any answers. I was hoping that putting those statements on TikTok would prompt the police to finally bring him to a grand jury for questioning. In February of 2019, the case was formally submitted to the county attorney's office requesting homicide charges to be made against Michael, but there was no telling if it would actually be taken seriously or not. It would take another 6 months for the attorney to make a decision. Until then, all anyone could do was wait. Then, to the shock of almost everyone involved in the case, Michael Turney was indicted on charges of murdering his own daughter. Maricopa County Attorney Alistair Adele did not elaborate on what exact evidence led to Mr. Turney's arrest, but did confirm that the indictment was issued by a grand jury. She also credited Sarah Turney and her TikToks with having helped solve the case. Sarah Turney, your perseverance and commitment to finding justice for your sister Alyssa is a testament to the love of a sister, and because of that love, Alyssa's light has never gone out, and she lives on in the stories and photos you've shared with the community, Adele said. This passion you have demonstrated to her during your journey is something that will keep Alyssa's memory alive forever. Sarah had said she will continue to make TikTok videos about Alyssa's case until her killer is brought to justice, and whether or not that killer is her own father remains to be seen. Every evening after work, she scans all of her social media accounts on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, plus her blog to see whether anyone has come forward with new information or tips. Then she sits down with the thousands of documents she's acquired that relate to Alyssa's case. I read through approximately 3,000 pages of case documents that were released to the public by the police and gone through a few hundred hours of home footage, video, and interviews that I've conducted with Alyssa's friends and family, she says. And no, I won't ever stop. Sarah and Alyssa's story is truly inspirational. A search for justice fueled by the love between two sisters. It's a reminder that those close to us will never stop fighting in our corner, even after we're long gone. But it's also a reminder that sometimes it's that those close to us can also be the ones that hurt us the most.